Leave a steak on your kitchen counter for 3 days, and what you have is no longer food. It's a hazard. One bite and you're looking at cramping, vomiting, fever, and a real chance of ending up on a drip, salmonella, E. coli, listeria, the entire catalogue of things your immune system was built to panic about. Now put a vulture on a zebra carcass that's been swelling in the sun for a week. Gas bloated, liquefying, carrying a bacterial load that could kill a person in a matter of hours. The bird lands, opens it up, and starts eating. No hesitation, no consequences. It leaves that carcass in better condition than it arrived in. That shouldn't work. Bacteria are indifferent to who's eating them. Botulinum toxin is botulinum toxin, whether it's sitting in your gut or a hyena's. The chemistry doesn't change species to species. So why does meat that would put you in intensive care barely register as a threat to the animals that live off it? The lazy answer is that scavengers just have tougher stomachs. That's not an answer, it's a shrug. And it's wrong in an interesting way, because when you actually look at how each of these animals handles the problem, they've all solved it completely differently. Different organs, different mechanisms, some of them solving a problem that turned out not to exist. Start with the extreme case. Your stomach acid sits somewhere around a pH of 1.5 to 3. Aggressive enough to break proteins apart, painful if it gets somewhere it shouldn't, and nowhere near strong enough to sterilize a corpse. A vulture's stomach acid measures close to pH 1, and in some species it goes lower still. That's strong enough to dissolve bone, strong enough to break down lead shotgun pellets embedded in a carcass. At that concentration, you're not really describing digestion anymore. You're describing decontamination. In 2014, a team led by Michael Roggenbuck at the University of Copenhagen ran DNA sequencing on the gut bacteria of dozens of vultures and found something that looks, at first glance, like a mistake. The bird's intestines were dominated by Clostridia and Fusobacteria, the same families responsible for botulism, gangrene, and tetanus in humans. The vultures weren't keeping these organisms out. They were carrying them by the billion and showing no sign of harm. Roggenbuck's reading was that the acid does the filtering first. The vast majority of what the bird swallows is destroyed before it ever reaches the intestine, and the small fraction that survives that gauntlet has effectively been selected for extreme tolerance. The vulture's gut then evolved alongside those survivors rather than against them. There's a second layer too. Vultures excrete uric acid onto their own legs and skin, which acts as an antimicrobial coating on the parts of the body that spend the most time inside a carcass. Two separate systems, stacked, built for one job. Hyenas took a completely different route. Their stomach acid is strong, but nowhere near a vulture's. They fight this in the bloodstream instead. Kay Holcomb at Michigan State University has spent more than 2 decades following wild-spotted hyena clans in Kenya, and her work keeps returning to the same observation. Disease-related deaths in these populations are close to non-existent. These are animals in constant contact with anthrax, rabies, and pathogens that periodically tear through the lion populations sharing the exact same territory. The hyenas keep eating and keep not dying. The explanation appears to be an immune system running permanently hot. Genetic work has found hyenas carrying expanded sets of immune-related genes compared with close relatives. Effectively, a broader standing arsenal ready before an infection has had a chance to establish itself. It isn't one clever adaptation. It's an entire biological posture that treats every meal as an incoming attack and never stands down. And that posture is not free. Maintaining immune defense at that level is metabolically expensive, and researchers have found signs that it trades off against reproduction when energy runs short. The hyena isn't immune to rotten meat by luck. It pays a bill for that immunity every day of its life, whether it eats or not. Now the part where the science turned out to be wrong. For nearly 30 years, everyone thought they knew how Komodo dragons killed. The story went that scraps of decaying flesh accumulate between their teeth, cultivating a reservoir of lethal bacteria, so a single bite seeds a catastrophic infection, and the dragon simply follows its prey for days until sepsis does the work. Walter Offenberg proposed it in 1981 after observing water buffalo die of infection days after being bitten. It was repeated in textbooks and documentaries until it became common knowledge. Then researchers actually cultured what was living in those mouths. A 2013 study of captive Komodo dragons, with the venom biologist Brian Fry among the authors, found ordinary oral bacteria, the same everyday flora you'd expect in most carnivores. Nothing exotic, nothing uniquely deadly. And there was a bigger problem the original theory never accounted for. Smaller prey, like deer, frequently die within minutes of being bitten. That's far too fast for infection to be involved in any way. Fry's earlier work had already located venom glands in the dragon's lower jaw, secreting compounds that prevent blood from clotting and cause a sharp drop in blood pressure. The prey isn't dying of infection. It's dying of shock and blood loss. So the rotten mouth theory wasn't merely incomplete. It was an elaborate solution to a problem the animal had never had. Crocodiles face a version of this problem that's arguably worse, and their answer is the strangest of the lot. They spend their lives half submerged in warm, stagnant, bacterially saturated water, tearing at decomposing carcasses, routinely losing teeth, and opening deep wounds in territorial fights with each other. Open wounds in filthy water is the textbook recipe for sepsis. It should be a death sentence on a regular schedule. Instead, they heal, largely without infection. Mark Merchant, a biochemist at McNeese State University, traced this to the blood itself. Crocodile plasma is rich in antimicrobial peptides, small proteins that rupture bacterial cell membranes on contact rather than interfering with their biochemistry. Tested in the lab against strains that shrug off modern antibiotics, it kills them anyway. A crocodile has no need to keep a wound clean because the environment stops mattering the moment anything gets inside. 4 animals, 4 unrelated solutions. Vultures sterilize chemically. Hyenas overwhelm immunologically. Crocodiles carry an antibiotic in their circulation. Komodo dragons sidestep the entire bacterial question with venom. What connects them isn't a shared mechanism. It's a shared pressure. Every one of them evolved somewhere that decaying flesh was a reliable meal, and refusing it meant starving. Humans never took that path. Not because we couldn't, but because we did something else first. Our approach to rotten meat is avoidance, and it's built into us at a level we don't control. Human olfaction is unusually sensitive to the specific compounds released during decomposition. The amines produced as protein breaks down, the sulfur compounds, the volatile products of bacterial growth. We detect them at low concentrations, and the response is immediate and involuntary. Disgust, recoil, The decision gets made before you've consciously identified the smell. Where a vulture's body treats a carcass as an internal engineering problem, ours treats it as a signal to leave. And then, at some point in the deep past, the evidence gets argued over, but somewhere in the last 1 to 2 million years, we found the workaround: fire. Cooking destroys the same pathogens a vulture's stomach acid destroys. The difference is where it happens. The vulture does its sterilization internally at enormous physiological cost in an organ that took millions of years to build. We do it externally in about 8 minutes using something we can carry. That's worth sitting with. A vulture didn't luck into strong acid. A hyena didn't luck into an aggressive immune system. Those are the compressed record of millions of years in which the slightest intolerance to pathogens meant slow starvation, and every marginal advantage got locked in and pushed further by whoever survived to pass it on. Their biology was rewritten by the food. We took the only route that left our biology alone. We changed the meat instead of changing ourselves, which leaves a slightly uncomfortable thought at the end of it. Every other scavenger on this planet had to become something else to survive on rotten meat. Different stomachs, different blood, different immune systems, whole bodies redesigned around a single food source. We're the ones who found a way out of that, and it's tempting to call that the smarter answer. But it also means we never found out what we might have become instead.